Okay, students, welcome back. Welcome back for the final installment of this May 2021 U.S. exam form. As you guys get into class, the lesson today, the live stream, can you give me a thumbs up or a hello in the chat just so we know you're here and ready to go? And again, we'll be covering the May 2021 U.S. SAT exam form and looking at the reading section in particular. As I said during the previous live streams for this particular test form, it's a daunting task to go through the reading section, especially on these live streams, just because it is really long, it's exhausting, it's tiring, right? All those things. And so we just have to, going into this, we have to know that that's just what it is. Okay, one of the comments we get from students all the time is that, this one's so hard. Well, yeah, it is hard, but it's hard for everybody. This isn't one of those situations for this test where you're the only one in the position that this particular exam section is really hard. So as we go through this and as you guys, as we continue to work through this, I want you to keep thinking about that and that you need to do the little things, the small things that make the biggest difference. Namely, today, before starting this one, for the other sections of the SAT exam, I feel pretty comfortable not having to warm up too much. That's not the case for the reading test. So this morning, okay, before we starting this live stream, I did some practice reading, right? It can be practice reading. If it's a New York Times, that's what I used. If it's a previous reading passage or reading section that you've done for the SAT, all of those things will work, but you have to do some warm up, okay? Because there's just nothing like waking up or whenever you have to show up and just starting immediately with a 65-minute really focused reading passage. Okay, so very, very, very important that we work through that. Does that make sense? Again, as you guys get into the live stream, can everybody just say hello? Give a thumbs up either in the chat, or if you don't want to give it in the chat, just give it below the video, and then we'll get started here. But again, the most important thing with the reading section, because unlike writing and language or the math sections, there's not a ton of content review you can do. Okay, a lot of this test is about warming up, about being ready to go so that you don't miss questions right off the bat just because you're not warmed up, you miss easy questions just because. And then to really, really concentrate on reading the passage and not getting overwhelmed by the timing or what you're reading, right? Take your time to read it. Again, it's amazing to me how often we have students that don't warm up or say that the test is really hard and then they go in with a negative mindset. It's going to be hard for everybody, okay? So again, guys, everybody that's in the live stream, welcome to the chat. I see everybody's coming back from yesterday. Welcome. All those that were on the math with the calculator yesterday. And let's keep thinking about this idea. How can we work through this test? How can we prepare ourselves before the exam section actually starts? And the reading is the first section for SAT test takers. How can we prepare ourselves before the test starts to be fully ready to go for the reading test? The other thing that I want to mention, and I'll mention it at the end of the live stream, the reading test is the hardest SAT section. I just don't think that there's any question. I'm a big reader. I love to read. I've done this for a long time, and I still think the reading test is the hardest section. And so what that tells me, hey guys, welcome. Rob, welcome back. Guys, if it's lagging a little bit, YouTube Live at the beginning of these videos for whatever reason, yeah, just if you refresh your page, it should be better. I apologize if it's lagging a bit, but yeah, if you refresh your page, it should be better. I'm not sure exactly what happens. Hopefully that works. But YouTube Live, the streaming quality here should be pretty good. We have a good internet connection here, but if it's lagging, I understand that it does that, and I've seen that as well. So just refresh it. Hopefully it goes away. But again, in any case, what I want you guys to be focused on today is making sure that you are focused all the way through and that you start the test knowing what you're going to accomplish. Okay, can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Okay, can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? So again, we're going to start this. There's really nothing to cover in terms of like material or what you should write. Reading is reading. The one thing that I'll say is that before you start the exam, there's a number of different ways to take this test. Though we teach it to really focus on the reading, right? To really focus and make sure that you guys are, right? That you're really focused on actually reading the test. And the reason for that is then you don't have, we're going to go over, okay, we're going to go over everything, but we're going to teach you guys throughout this and why it's really, really important to actually read things, okay? To stay focused, to make sure that you're reading all the way through. because it's very, very important for that, right? To stay focused. You don't have that big drop off in your score when you're actually reading the passages, and part of that is just making sure that you're focused from the very beginning and not worrying about the prospect that that you don't finish the test. Because I want to remind everybody that if we stay focused, okay, just for the record, if you guys are trying to figure out how you can score better, do not go into this test thinking, even if you're looking to get a perfect score on the SAT, if you go thinking that you're going to get a 52 out of 52, you're putting way too much stress on this. Let's just really quickly, right, reiterate the fact that if you get 45 out of 52 questions right, and you have 1 minute to go, and you guess on the remaining 7 questions, you're going to pick up 2 of those. So 47 out of 52, right, is still in the top, I don't know, probably 2% of all readers, of all SAT readers. Okay, so if you go in and you think to yourself, I'm just going to go through this at my pace, I'm not going to feel overwhelmed, and then you stay focused on this idea that you're going to get 45 out of 52 questions right, and you get all 45 of those right, you are guaranteed to be in the top 2% of all readers. Can everybody give me a thumbs up? Before we start, can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Because this right here, 45 out of 52, takes so much pressure off. And if you have a great day and you read and you get 52 out of 52, awesome. But going in with that expectation puts way too much pressure on every question because you think you have to get every one of them right. If you go in with 45 in mind, you already know if you accomplish that goal, you're going to get in the top 2% of all SAT readers. And then if it's a great day and you have a right, then you get 52 out of 52. That's the correct mindset to go into this reading test because it is long and it is daunting. All right, so I'll talk my way through this. I think the lagging is gone. Sometimes it has to do with the fact that the big screen, when we go to the smaller screen, that helps. But in any case, guys, so 1 hour and 5 minutes. Again, this is for everybody that's going to watch the recorded version, or everybody that wants to follow along. This is the May 2021 US version, and you can find this in the video description below. You can find this exam form. And yeah, guys, without further ado, let's get started here, and I'll try to talk my way through it as I go. Again, read as thoroughly and as carefully as you can the first time, and then trust your reading when you get to the questions. That's one last thing here. Let me pull up. You can see my timer. All right, everybody ready to go? Here we go. Okay, so if you've already taken the test, great. You can follow along. Hopefully everything works out for us here. And come on, timer. Okay, cool, guys. All right, and then let's start it over here, and our time starts now. All right, so again, we're just going to read it as carefully as we can, and the first passage is always the narrative passage. So this one's probably going to take it. It's going to be the most interesting read, which is good because if you start with this one, the reading isn't going to be nearly as hard, but the questions are very difficult because they're much more tone based and much more theme, right, point of view based. You got to be really careful when you get to the questions. So carefully read and take your time. Okay, don't try to fly through this just because it's the first passage, right? You can already see a lot of times I like to take a deep breath, right? We're already 30 seconds in, and you can see I'm still talking and haven't started reading yet. A lot of times right when the proctor says go, I like to sit there for 30 seconds, literally knowing that I'm wasting my time, but feeling like, okay, what am I about to do? Before I just jump into this, right, what am I about to accomplish so that you don't just fly through the reading really quickly and then at the end of it you're like, what did I just read, right? Read it to read it, and sometimes the first passage can be a little daunting because you know the timer just started. Take a deep breath and then we'll get started. So now it's been a minute and let's see if we can start reading. Entitled, right? So it'd be felt entitled, right? And look at adjectives. Or how they right tone words and adjectives are so important, especially for the first passage, but just important overall. So this guy's pretty arrogant, right? Bishu is pretty arrogant. Could have done with. She resented him. She resented him too, right? So she doesn't like this guy. So that's her husband. You tell her, right? The great news. She doesn't like this person. She's wondering why her husband didn't talk to her about it. Oh wait, no. Sorry. Yeah, wait. I think that's still. Yeah, that must be just his word, which was. Secret dream is a house of her own. The Grangia bushes. Father was still alive then, right? Is that why she wanted out? Okay, so she's longingly, right? We can't afford it, is what she's saying. Okay, it's an investment. So this is not. So Bishu is not. It's not for her, right? Again, it's this bright idea. You can kind of picture this, and I like to try to picture it as I'm going, right? Does this make sense? That as you picture it as you're going, this is the one friend, right? It's the husband's one friend that's always around, that's annoying to the wife, right? You can kind of see this. It's in the movies all the time. This is a very common tale. So picture it as that, right? The one friend has this great investment idea, this fast way to make money or whatever, and the wife is annoyed because this person seems to be a drag on the husband who's doing well otherwise, right? Increase fast in the Bay Area. Sell it, take out a second mortgage balance. In goodness, he should knew. So this is like he's new an agent because otherwise it wouldn't qualify him. Do the painting themselves. Good night. See the movie. The Bay Area. So now they've moved, right? The way they used to be in India. I was wondering about that. So when I saw the Bay Area here, it was interesting because I thought they were still in India when they were talking about this. But they've moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, it sounds like. Okay, when they were political leaders. So they had a big jobs in India and then they moved and Sanjay has continued to succeed. That's the husband. Right? Think about this as you go. Keep going. Okay, so she's picturing this. She's got her own plan. So she's got. Okay, so I like this whole thing is somewhat the whole passage is inspiring and from Bella's point of view, right? So think about those things before you start, and then watch how it took us about 5 minutes to read that. That's fine. Okay, that's fine. Good morning, guys. Welcome. Okay, so this is Bella's point of view, right? And she doesn't like no for right Bishu. Okay, Sanjay is her husband, right? You can start to point this out. They're going to buy a house as an investment property. She doesn't want that. She wants the house of her own. So if you start to think about these things, we're about 6 minutes in here, I suppose. 7 minutes in, right? We have 13 minutes per passage. Watch how easy the questions are if you really understand what was going on there before moving on. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Okay, the narrative indicates that Bella perceives Sanjay as yielding too readily to Bishu's guidance in professional matters. Probably, right? He does. She doesn't think Sanjay is better than Bishu, right? Sanjay is better than and in everything except for when Bishu comes with this like crazy idea, right? Showing too little ambition to move forward. No, too little ambition. No, because he has moved and he's looking to become a professor. I mean, a supervisor rather. Choosing to be somewhat secretive about his plans. No, he's allowing Bishu to distract him from important chores. No, it's going to be A, right? Yielding too readily, because Sanjay's more successful. She hated the deference, right? It's got to be A. Let's see. Oh, I say that, and then that's a horrible way to go about that. Let me back that up. Whenever you're looking at these lines, you always want to try to answer question number one. You'll notice that I didn't even know that the second one, that evidence-based question, right? This is what we call an evidence-based question, number two. You'll notice that I didn't even know that that was an evidence-based question before answering number one. And that's how you want to approach these. Number one, this is what we call a direct question. There are plenty of questions on the SAT reading test that do not have evidence-based follow-up questions that are just solely direct questions. So answer all of these questions the same way. And then if there happens to be an evidence-based question, right, we're trying to figure out which one is yielding too readily to his guidance. Okay, and so you'll see that it's 11 through 27. Don't go back and just read individual line numbers. Go back and see where she gets frustrated that Sanjay is just constantly listening to his friend. Okay, and we're going to go from 11 right here, right, down to like right around here probably. Okay, she hated now at such times Sanjay, though otherwise masterful. Just last week, could follow the neighborhood park to cover regress and do teenage deference. Okay, so I like that. Yes, you're right, Bishu. I still should be careful about that. Nice. Tonight. So I like that. So 11. So this paragraph, unless there's something better leading up to 27, we're probably going to go with that answer choice. This night, once he'd cut his ribs, yes, good news for you. But I'm happy to hear from a stranger. You know, but this. So here's why. Two might be C, and I'll tell you why, guys. It's specifically with 20 to 24. It's this word professional. This is a really hard question, I think, but it's specifically that word professional matters that makes it. Because everything before that in the 11 lines was about total, right? His just deference in total. Does everybody see that? So I think it's C, but this is a hard question, and it's hard that we have to start with number 2 being so difficult. It's definitely not B, and it's definitely not D, but it could be A, so we can come back to that one, right? But let's keep moving. There's no reason. We know that one's hard. I know that one's hard because I can't really figure out if it's 11. Both of those are really close. But when I read the professional matters, I was thinking, like, that doesn't really talk about it in 11. And it does when we start to get into the talk about the house. I'm not sure on that one, but move on, right? Who knows on that one? We can always come back to it. We're down to 50-50 at worst. I know it's A or C at worst, right? And that's where we want to be. Does that make sense? 2 thumbs up if that makes sense. That you don't want to stay on that question when we know it's hard, and we can keep moving on to easier questions. Concerning Bella's cooking, primarily served to highlight the extent to which depends on her advice. Absolutely not. Demonstrate the freedom he feels in his friend's home. Maybe B. Maybe suggests he lacks refinement in his manners when eating. No, this is the reason he feels the freedom, right? That's that arrogance that he's just doing whatever and commenting, even though she made the meal. From fond memories, no, it's definitely not D. Suggests he lacks refinement in his manners. I don't think it's when eating, so I think it is B, because the freedom that he feels in his friend's home is not something that she thinks he should have. That's that arrogance that she brought up. Again, we're going through this and confidently going through it based on what we actually read and not worried about going back on every question. Right? If you're reading carefully, you don't have enough time to go back on every question, but you should have confidence that, okay, what is happening in this passage? It's only 90 lines of double space, right? 2-column text. I should know what's going on. The comparison in lines 28 through 29, of course, if you have to go back to see a specific line number, right, we can. The word switched around in the head like wild birds. Okay, like wild birds, great.
Prospect of living in the countryside, maybe. I don't think it's right. Representing both anxiety and hopes will never be conceived of unexpected joy. I think it's D, right? Because it's not. It's not living. The countryside has. It's not. They're living in the Bay Area, so no, not suspicion, right? She's excited about having a house of her own. I think this one should be D. Her reason being inferred from that, her initial thoughts about Sanjay's announcement are prompted by her memories of a cherished time. Longing to return to the security of her childhood. From the passage that those initial thoughts about Sanjay are prompted by her memories of a cherished. I think it's got to be A, right, for 5. Right, cherished time in the past. That one just immediately sticks out because she then talks about all of that longing when she first had her house back in India. She talks about that pretty extensively. I mean, that's almost a full paragraph, it feels like. Knowledge that her father would approve. No, her father's passed away at that point. Longing to return to the security. No, it wasn't. She didn't say, and I don't think it's skepticism. It's all about her personal feelings towards it. I was using that unreasonable. 37. Go back here. 37 wasn't it? So she hadn't told Sonia because of an unreasonable longing with her earning. Okay, so it was unreasonable because they weren't making enough money. She wanted it. Unrealistic, right, for 6, definitely. She was earning minimum wage, so the fact that she would bring up buying a house felt too much. According to the passage, she objects to the plan of buying a house because you put the house in the photograph. I remember Charlie. She was something maybe she at first. We don't have the money, right? 7, right? They say that. I think it's almost directly stated, but just so you guys know, to live in. She says that we can't afford it, right? I circled that. We can't afford it. That seems like a pretty big statement. So it's definitely D for that one. Reason being inferred from the passage, Sanjay and Bishop believe their chance of purchasing a house to be helped by their willing. No, his knowledge or his connections. Let's go both no. Maybe D for 8. No, it's not here. No, I think it is C though. But I'm gonna start this one too. Like I said, the first passage's questions are the hardest. The skills they acquired, I don't want to go. Well, now I am gonna go back. I'm an idiot. 55 through 71, right? So we're gonna go back and just read those. I didn't realize that was gonna be a direct, so we're gonna figure this one out right now anyway. It is an investment. We're pulling your savings for down payment. We'll rent it out. The rent will cover. So I'm reading all the way down here, guys. Read it all and find where it most makes sense related to. Is it because of Bishu's his knowledge, right, of the industry or what, right? The rent will cover monthly mortgage. Probably goes increasing the way. Things I do. Who was known to be sure and bring to the price of the loan. Thank goodness. I think, it was an agent. I think it is C. And then I think it's these lines right here, right? Like 60, whatever, 2 to 66, somewhere in there. 61 to 66 for 9. Right? Because it is, even though the political stuff, I think, plays into it, but really it's more about the fact that he knows this. Immerse the last paragraph of the passage. Oh, it's to immersed in her own, right? She's gonna come back around, and she's got her own plans. She's sharing others to persuade creative ability to save money better than me. No, just more better. Urging strategy, right? It's a very interesting last paragraph. It's definitely D. All right, so now we're moving on. Does that all make sense? Everybody feel good? Remember that the first paragraph, okay, the first paragraph is always a longer paragraph in terms of longer questions, right? You have to take your time on those because it's point of view. When you get to like I look out because I like the U.S. history passages, and then when you get to the science questions, hopefully those go really quickly because if you really understand the science passage, it's hard to read the science. It's so boring, right? But if you really focus and you don't get bored by it, and you just go in with the mindset like, hey, this is the most interesting passage I've ever read in my life. Hard to do that, but if you do, the questions are really straightforward in the science, much more straightforward than they are in that first narrative passage. Does that make sense? Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? Okay, so this is adapted from Pope Leo, the Catholic Church. This is 1891. So this is one of the old ones. Unfortunately, we don't get the U.S. history passage. That's the old one because I like reading about that. But it's an old like Catholic doctrine. Question 10, guys. On question 10, it was about the main purpose of the last paragraph. And remember, I even stated that it was about her. She's going to go behind. She's going to go behind his back. She's going to behind Bishu's back and buy him out. Right? She's got this full plan emerging. She's very cunning and very right. She understands. She's very clever. It's come to pass that working and obviously doesn't like Bishu. Okay, so let's stay focused here. It's come to pass that working men have been surrendered. I said it and help us. The heart hard-heartedness of employers. Okay, so I have no idea. Rapacious, usury, right? In 1891, it's not unexpected, so you got to be careful that you wouldn't know some of the vocab words. It's older English, which although more than once can admit there's nevertheless like injustice. Think about 1891 too. That's the start of the Industrial Revolution, or it's in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, I think, in England, and at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in the United States. So I think that's what this is about. So although more than once condemned by the church, nevertheless under different guise, but like injustice still practical, covetous and grasping that. Because it's right there's the adjectives. Okay, this must be added at the hiring of labor and conduct of trade. Comparatively few. So very comparatively few. Okay. Okay, so the Pope, the Catholic Pope is saying that during the Industrial Revolution, certain people become very, very wealthy, and it's at the expense of so many. How many of those were wrong? These wrongs the socialists written upon men's rich. Not better, Okay, so this is interesting, right? So we thought here that potentially the Catholic Pope was going to go talk about socialism here, right? Socialists would be among the first. They're more of them. So interestingly enough, the Catholic Pope is weighing in on the difference between capitalism and socialism, communism. Very interesting passage to say the least. In 1891. That one So talking about specifically about private property. So where was that said? Transferring property from private individuals to the community. So private property is going to be, and that's the big part about socialism versus capitalism. So the Pope seems to be highlighting that. One man hires out to another, his strength or skill. He does so for the purpose of receiving in return what is necessary to satisfy his needs. So satisfaction of his needs, starting with shelter, right, property, before expressing his support, right, full and real non-remuneration. So he best features family, saves money at the greatest union, this savings in land, sell land in such places. Community at his full disposal. Okay. As other wages he receives for his labor. So this is basically the conversation that's kind of going on right now in the world, right? Is that this idea that, right, that there's a medium, there's some balance that private property should be there, but people should earn a living wage to actually be able to purchase private property. So it's kind of the debate that's even going on today. Used for his labor, but his presenting his power to dispose of it, or should obtain the land. The range of transportation, every wage earner. Liberty disposing his wages in the background, bettering his condition in life. So there's a balance is really what this is coming down to. What are the four? Okay, so very interesting passage, especially because it was written in 1891 by a Catholic Pope, who you'd be probably more inclined to think would not talk about private property, but very interesting. Again, this is I love history. I love American history, but I love history in general. This is a very interesting passage to me. I think these questions are going to be very, very straightforward and very easy. I like these types of passages and really understood what was going on there. And when you find that passage from practice, when I know that I like the historical passages, and I know that I can fly through those questions. So whereas I took time, we took 15 minutes or so on the first narrative passage, because that's nothing, it's not that I don't like that one or dislike it, right? That's kind of right in the middle for me of the 5 passages in terms of my like or dislike. I just know I have to go slow on the questions because they are more theme-based, whereas this social science type of passage, we're talking about, the economies, is far more direct. Does that make sense? So a big part of this, and we've done videos on this as well,
is finding which passages you like to do the best, and then knowing that going in, like, oh, I might be a little bit behind on time right now, but I know I haven't seen my best passage yet, and when that comes, like this one, without a doubt, when I see a historical passage, I know I'm going to be able to fly through it. I know I'm going to understand it. I'm going to be interested in it almost exclusively, regardless of what the historical passage is talking about. And I know I can get through the questions because I really understand it, right? Talking about the Catholic Pope, there's a lot of things that are going on. So based on the passage, Pope Leo would be most likely to get the economics there, a test to which basic relationship. Modifications of the economy, heightened tensions between employees and workers, maybe. Control a select group of business people, probably. Yes, B for 11. I don't. It's definitely not A. If B is so, sometimes when you like, I didn't think A was bad or good, but I know B is much better than A, so I'm gonna eliminate A and keep going. Competition you mean in particular sector workers? No, it's not competition. Measures meant to protect workers from economic exploitation of the unintended. No, I think it's B, right? Because this is far more measures meant to protect. We don't know what those measures are, right? Pope Leo rather is very specific in which ones he believes, but it's ultimately it's not all measures, right? It is very specific. And you got to be careful on that because that's a hard one to go through. But in any case, right, so I answered that one, and then I just noticed that these next ones, right, 1 through 20. So let's go back and read 1 through 20 to see where we find those. It's come to pass, we can have been surrounded, isolated, help us then check competition. Maybe these first 1 through 4, I remember that was. Okay, I think it's here, right? Because it's a few business people, so like 10 through 14, somewhere in there. 8 through 14, I think is right. Because that's specifically, right? That's specifically what it's talking about there. As used in line 19, common. What's it mean? 19. Become the common property of all. So that's the community, right? Everyone's property, shared property of all. That's this right. That's starting now getting into the socialist discussion. According to Leo, the desire to acquire property prompts individuals to feel envious. No, seek work from an employer. View work as more dignified than they otherwise would. I think it's C. No, I think it's C. Right, because that's the whole thing for 14. The word dignified. I skipped over B, but now I'm coming back. Let's come back to this one. Whoops, let me start this 14. It could be B too, because the dignified is too much, right? It's not, the work isn't dignified. They like to do the work so that they're dignified in acquiring the property, and so they seek work from an employer potentially to acquire the property. So it could be B there. 14 could be B. We'll come back to that one hopefully if we have time. So help me remember that if we can. 945, the phrase little estate most directly refers to 45. I think little estate, right? I remember reading this. Working man's, I almost circled this. Working man's little estate does purchase fee is complete. Yeah, so it's small, but it's important, right? Does that make sense? Can everybody see that for number 15? The idea that it's small but important. That's what the little estate. Land or other property, yeah. Status of a wage earner within the community, no. Neighborhoods where wage earners typically live, no. No, I think it's A here for 15. Because it's saying that the person that works hard and acquires that property, even if it's small, should have the ability to dispose of that property as they see fit. Be reasoning from the past that Leo, the 13th, views socialism being threatening because it discourages. See, I think this is talked about in the final paragraph. I'm actually, I felt like I understood this more, but some of these questions are pretty hard. I think it's maybe D though for 16. Because he talks about the difference between man and animal. I gotta come back to 16. I said this to you guys.
right? And sometimes this happens. I thought this was going to be a lot easier than it was. D kind of rings a bell, so I'll circle that just so if we do come back to it where, we're feeling good about that. But he talks about the difference between man and animal. Endanger certain, right? Decreases the individuals, no, because it's not about benefiting society. He wants to avoid benefiting society if that's the primary outcome. Discontent, no. Discourages. I think it's got to be D, only because I don't like any of the other answers. One is about to believe that people can master deal. What to do with their property is got to be this one, right? That's the whole thing about. I think we just read that with little estate as well. They talk about the little estate. They have the ability, even if it's small, to figure out what they want to do because they've saved, they've purchased, right? Is this making sense, guys? Any questions? Can everybody give me 2 thumbs up in the chat if you're following along on the live stream? Or if you're watching this later, or if you don't want to participate in the chat, just give me a thumbs up below the video if this is all making sense as we go through it. Is it those who wish to abolish the ownership of property fail to recognize that such ownership promotes a single set of values among the wealthy? Maybe for 18. Prove their circumstances. 18's got to be B, right? Includes where you feel content about conversation. No. I don't think it's wealthy and working class. It's probably measures the working class as a means because he talks about that at the end as a means to improve. I thought that was at the very end, but maybe not. Maybe that was 50. What was that? I thought it was at the end, towards the end. So 50 to 56. I think that's gonna be where it is because I thought I remembered that in the final paragraph. Bettering conditions in life. I think this one should be D. And again, I don't recommend that typically. But as I was looking through these, I remembered it being towards the end. I specifically remembered him talking about that, the ability to improve your circumstances. And so that I typically recommend. But if you remember kind of where they were discussing that, if that immediately strikes a chord, and then you notice that there's only one line here that's later on, that's important as well. Last paragraph description of animal creation serves mainly to assert essential difference between humans and animals. Got to be A, right? So a couple of these they were just as straightforward as I thought they would be. This is the whole last paragraph. I don't even have to go back. The whole thing that Pope Leo was talking about is the fact that this animal, right, this kind of animal creation idea. I'm going to erase this for 16 just so because I want to come back. 14 is definitely one between B and C that I want to come back to, but I felt good about 16. So let's keep going. I want to make sure that we get through the whole thing. Remember, for anybody that's been watching the live stream so far, we're on pace for 1,600 right now, and hopefully that continues. Okay, we have to get every question right, I think, on this test. I'm not exactly sure the scale. If anybody has a link to the scale, can you post that later or in the comments section below this? Not in the chat, but in the comments, so I can open it if we do get all the questions. If we don't get all the questions right, because occasionally with the reading test, you don't have to get every question right. You can get 51 out of 52 and still get a perfect score on the reading section. Thus, we would get a perfect score overall. But first, we have to get 51 or 52 right. So let's keep going. Finding research by Dr. Grove Jr. Two-nosed seabirds. So again, this is the science passage I'm talking about. Nobody really woke up this morning probably wanting to read about tube-nosed seabirds. Ideally, right? We probably didn't think about that. Okay? But that's where you have to be really involved with the passage because the question should be really straightforward, very direct, like a science passage typically would be. Okay, so as krill eats this, right, it releases a scent or some type of pheromone into something into the air, and seabirds can smell that. It releases a something within them, and then they know where to go, is what this is saying, this DMS. Tube nose, right, would be, I think, like a seagull, right? You can picture kind of a tube on their nose, tube-nosed seabirds. nearly 6 times as frequently. Okay, so that must be because sulfur compound. Okay. So basically, plastic gets into the ocean. It's then coated with algae over time. As krill comes and eats the algae, then the plastic is there, right? And that's what the seabirds then eat because it's underneath the algae. Right about a month at sea. Yeah, sometimes I'll read the passage out loud, but it's hard to sometimes. I don't want you guys to just listen to me talk out loud for 65 minutes. So it's a good question, but usually I'll just read it to myself and point out things that I'm seeing. It's a good question. And sometimes I'll mutter under my breath. Achieving branch loud stuff. Scientists. Robert Mondavi, Institute for Food and Wine Science. Using gas specifically built to take sulfurs in food products. It's funny. Okay, so it takes the wine, right? Wine experts. Okay, so sulfur smells delicious to some seabirds. Okay. Looking like food, plastic debris. Okay, so great. So just talking about seabirds and their ingestion. Don't read the. What my recommendation would be not to read the charts. I don't know how you guys typically go about those, but don't read the charts until they ask about them. There'll be specific questions saying like in Figure 1, similar to the ACT Science section. So if you see those, just ignore it for now. The ability to detect DMS is used to seabirds because DMS suggests the presence of large amounts. No, studies your ability to navigate in heavy fog, maybe. Especially high, maybe. I think it's 21 should be D, right? Because it's about the krill. They don't eat the algae. The krill eats the algae, which releases this DMS. So that yeah, I think that's right. Is using line 22 contain. This is a good example for 21 is exactly what I was talking about. Is that if you remember that's such a specific fact, right? That seabirds eat krill eats algae, and the algae then releases this DMS. So again, that's where that science portion comes in, where I feel like if you really understand the passage, you just remember it's not that much text. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? That on these science passages, there's only 75 lines of text with some graphs. So if you read it and you read it carefully, the facts are just going to probably pop up in your mind for what's going on. Or hopefully, right? That's what we hope. It's contained information, contained, so it's included information. That's a pretty easy vocab one, I think. And can reasonably be inferred from the passage that prior to the station that the author must have identified as let's just the beginning. I don't think it's any of these, right? That has nothing to do with minimum level. I think that's right. 41 through 56. I guess I wasn't looking in the right spot, so let's go back and make sure. There we see to measure the chemical signature of our. Smell like right. It's smelling delicious. And well above levels that tuners can detect and use to find food. think it's, what was that? Lines was that? Like this line's right, like 51 through 54. Again, so C probably for 24. You guys will notice that every single time, this is the question that we see students miss all the time. These two back-to-back evidence-based questions. There are so many. We should realize this, right? That if you remove 24, right? So if we just look at 23, if we just knew that 23 was coming, can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if this idea makes sense? That if you just knew that 23 was coming, you would just do that question like you do every other direct question. So a lot of times we get students who are looking at the page, and when you have the real SAT in front of you, it's a booklet, right? Or even, I think even on the computer-based version, there'd be back-to-back questions, right? You'd see them both on the same page. And so we become too reliant on 24. I answered 23 because that was the only one that made any sense, but I guarantee I would have been thrown off by going back and rereading these. None of these other ones can result from biofouling. That doesn't make sense. Algae can coat a plastic surface. That has nothing to do with it. Right, maximum amount of plastic can be safely consumed. That's not what they're looking for. They want to reduce the maximum amount, right? So it's A because that's the only thing that has anything to do with this. And then you can go to the answer choices to see which one verifies A. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? According to the author, research he did with Nevitt is valuable because the results indicate that's. I'm sorry, guys. I was just looking at your comments there. Recently, credibility to food to the use of. According to the research he did with Nevitt is valuable because the results indicate. I think it's B, right? Because that was somebody declining. No, I think it's the scientific community may have underestimated it. Because he even talks about that's like the whole last paragraph. Yeah, I think it's B. That's that whole last paragraph talking about how, and even to a further extent, that they don't even know about some of the seabirds that they can't see very often, right? Which choice best supports the conclusion that a factor other than the presence of DMS can mislead seabirds into consuming plastic? Oh, it's that they see it sometimes, right? So let's go back. We're going to read all of the lines 60 through 74, which I think is just the last paragraph. Around there, yeah, plastic around just the last paragraph. Then it just looks like food. Practically looks and smells like food. Okay, so I think that's it, right? Yeah. And the present can mislead you more than that, right? So it says the see, look, and right smell, both of those. There's 2 senses. So I think it's 61 has got, or 60 to 62, right? Somewhere in that 61 range. Very nice to meet last pair of apprentices answer questions. The sciences now describe new design for future sport planets certain types of food should be observed with more scrutiny. Yeah. Because on this one, right, this is what we were just talking about. That's the whole thing. That even the albatross is the one that they use that's out and about all the time, but it's even he talks about, or the author talks about how it might even be worse than they originally thought because you can't see these birds, but the results would say that birds that are less seen could be even more affected by these findings. 71. What if it kind of, so they often are not surveyed right there, right? So that's what I'm talking about with these science passages, is if like you really read them to understand them, surveyed means are not tracked, right? They don't have them as much in the context because they're not tracked as easily. The statement about the data is supported by the passage, figure 1, high density, blue location, mean micrograms. Overall, blue location 2, okay, great, figure 1. Tension based on plot for degree would have been highest at the end of 1 month period, both for now, so now the location, maybe. Yeah, D, right? 32, what is the approximate mean percentage of the seabirds found eating plastic debris that use a DMS? So, found eating plastic debris that use a DMS foraging cue. DMS used as foraging cue, mean, yes, mean effective DMS. Mean and percentage, roughly 50. According to figure 1, which buoy location and type of plastic had the highest concentration of DMS? Figure 1, highest concentration, mean. It's either, well, no, it's going to be 14, so polypropylene. Polypropylene at location 2. Right, that was at 14 versus 13. So again, if you just follow along with the question and go where it tells you to go, those ones shouldn't be too difficult. Let's go back to, let's keep going. I know we're a little bit behind time, but not too much from where we started. So we're good, right? Take a deep breath. This is what I'm talking about. If we get to 47 out of 52 questions, we know we did really well. Right now, there's probably one question. There was that B and C answer for 14 or 15 that we have to go back to. But other than that, I feel like we answered pretty much every question correctly. None of them were like overwhelmingly back and forth between two answer choices. And so at this point, if we're whatever, 30 or 31, 30 for 31 or 31 for 31, even if we run out of time, who cares? That's like 47 out of 52 questions. That's in the top 2%. You're on pace for a 750 on this section of the test, right? When you get into the writing and language, which is easier than the reading section. So who cares if you get 47 out of 52? As long as you just stay focused, there's no question. We're not far enough behind time. We might miss the last 5 questions if we don't hustle, right? And maybe I'll put my head down in the last passages so we do try to get the perfect score and not talk as much. But the key is that even if we didn't, we'd be at 47 out of 52. We're not far enough behind time we're not that far behind time, I guess is what I'm saying. Yep, you guys can absolutely ask questions at the end of the test. Economy is fueled by a few dominant firms, just in everywhere, giants. Yeah, right now, this is interesting about this new generation. It's called Superstar Company. Okay, because of technology, right? This is the stuff that I love to read. So even though I thought it was going to be the Pope Leo article, this is the stuff that I should fly through the questions. This is like my favorite topic to read. I read about it all the time. I've read Lawrence Katz before. Okay, and again, as an avid reader, that gives me a big advantage. And all of you guys can be avid readers. This is something that I'm very interested in. So I know these questions are going to be extremely easy. And I know that because A, I love to read, and I know what I like to read because just by pure consumption of those articles. And 2, I know a lot about this stuff already. And you can be in that position too. That's not just because I know it. I'm not just a genius about 5, the economies of scale of 5 tech companies. I just like to read about technology. And so if you do that, whatever it is that you like to read, it doesn't have to be technology. It doesn't have to be passage 4. But if you want to be a scientist or you're a chemist or whatever, then one passage is always going to be easier than others. Can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if that makes sense? So that when you find that passage, I'm going to fly through this one and we're going to get back on pace. I can almost guarantee it because I very quickly am reading this and know what they're talking about immediately. And most of it is because I have some outside knowledge of this industry. But this is just and again, have read some of the authors of these studies, right? The trend puzzles economists. Some suggest it reflects the rise of cheap robots and the jobs of human workers. The emergence of superstar companies. These companies grow. Need fewer workers as their songwriters. So again, these companies, all these companies have hundreds of billions of dollars in cash in a bank account, and they don't need any more than that. They can't spend it fast enough, which is what the author is saying here. There's so much great labor frugal firms that there's not enough people to hire. They don't know where they're going to go next. I mean, it's somewhat unfair to these firms, these big companies, because they have so much money. They're making so much money because of technology, because they have done this so well that it's difficult to keep up, right? So yeah, that's a big part, right? Market share in their sectors means labor gets a smaller portion of the nation's overall income. Rises the disturbing economic trends. Software, digital devices, and artificial intelligence over the last decade at great progress in economic growth. How can overall growth be so loud? Right? Because I don't think they're finding institutions at the periphery of the top companies in various sectors. Corporate frontier is running robustly. So it turns out the productivity, right, but not necessarily labor, I bet. I think the best use of the internet, software, and other technologies to create and streamline their operations, right? The whole internet idea is about optimization and efficiency, right? Even being able to communicate to all of you right now is what this article, and this is why I love talking about this stuff. The ability for us to communicate right now. We have students that have tuned in yesterday, I think, from like 8 different countries. And for me to be able to broadcast, that's what this whole article is talking about. It's very, very interesting. And honestly, some of these questions, and this is where more reading helps you. Like if you read more, you're going to do better on this section of the test. I love to read, and I love to read about this. And if I happen to get an article like this, or if I happen to get one of the set passages looks like this, I to the point that I almost feel like I could answer these questions without having read this passage in particular. And that doesn't always happen. You have seen other live streams where I didn't get any passage that looks like that, but the ability to read more gives you a better opportunity to find a passage like that. None of the other passages besides this one have made me, as excited to read this as I am here. Okay, and the corporate activities, liars. Okay, right? That's the key. Does that make sense, guys? Is that if you read more, the chances of you finding a passage like this are very, very high. Can everybody again give me a thumbs up that reading more is a huge part of being better at the reading test, because there aren't grammar rules to memorize. There's not math rules to memorize. So just reading more and more, whatever it be, articles, news articles, I'm constantly reading. And that gives me a huge advantage, not only just to be a faster reader and to comprehend better, but then when I get a passage that looks like this where I'm really interested in it, you feel like, oh man, the sky's the limit. You can absolutely fly through it, okay, in terms of how quickly you're reading. The central idea in the past is successful sectors of the modern economy include only companies that want to use innovative technologies. Probably experience a shift towards the centralization powered by. Oh wait, the modern economy sectors. Okay, so wait, I don't think it's A. Powered by. I think it's B. No, it's not faster labor growth. It's slower labor growth. No, it's B. Right, and I get confused here with A because it says companies, but it's successful sectors. Remember, they said the top 5 companies in every sector of the economy are the ones that are dominating, and those are the ones that have been innovative with technologies. Okay, the enterprise is starting primarily by analyzing the effect of technology on future market trends. No, examining the price of one company becomes the leader in its industry. Maybe. No, it's D. So B is really close, but then I recognize that, and sometimes you have to go back and reread the question. Examining the process by which one company became a leader in its industry. No, specifically the author, he or she specifically says that there's usually 4 or 5 in the sector. Companies have little chance of seeing they cannot obtain market control allowed by research company. Certain industries, right? It's talking right here. I remember reading that. Kat says that probably because of the wide disparity in how well companies take advantage, it's like 25 through 28 through 30, guaranteed for 34. Right? That's a perfect example of a question where I remember exactly where they were talking about that. It's probably a little, I think I was reading like 25, but it's all right here. No, it's right there, yeah. In other words, you might have, as smart as company you feel, you might as well not bother. Right? I specifically remember reading that, and that's where, again, and you can do this. Not every passage is this, like this exciting to read. And there's some that I obviously dread reading. But some that you get like this, if you can be as focused as you possibly can be on whatever topic it is, and that's going to be different for per topic, right? Like if it's this topic, I'm super excited. This is a 10 for me in terms of what I like to read.
If it's something that I don't like to read, I could make it a 1, but instead of making it a 1, let's make it a 4. And that will increase your speed, right? 1 to 4, that's a 4 times difference. If you guys, a lot of questions here about spare time and how am I talking through this and how do I read quickly. It's because instead of thinking about these as a 1, I think about it as a 4. Instead of thinking about it as a 7, I think about it as a 10. Right? And if you do that, then you're 4 times faster on that passage than you otherwise would be when you're doing I'm reading, and then I'm off into space. My finger's at the bottom of the page. I have no idea what I just read. Right? I have no interest in reading about seagulls or whatever the birds were, with 2 birds, seabirds. No interest. 0. Never read anything about that. So that would be a 1 for me. But instead of making it a 1, I was trying to be interested in what was going on in the experiment and whatever, and so it was a 4. Think about that. 1 to 4, that's 4 times faster than you otherwise would be, 4 times better comprehension. So if you guys are interested in that, that's a huge part of it, is that you maximize whatever it is you're reading, and when you get to a passage like this, the first narrative passage might take you 15 minutes. A passage like this, if I wasn't yapping so much and just talking, would have taken me probably 7 or 8 minutes, to be honest. Out of 13, I probably could have done this in half the time because I liked reading it that much and knew where everything was when I get to these questions. Passage most directly suggests, I'm going to say that I'm, of course, going to miss one only on this passage, like an idiot. Companies that have been less successful in super companies have tended to fail to capitalize, probably, for 35. Fail to capitalize on emerging, neglect to hire. No, it's not about the hiring. Posting building groundbreaking business benefit only. No, it's not only their respective markets, right? It's all markets. Competitive economic view. It's A, right? I think it's A. Let's see, go back here. So it's like 1 through. Let's see if it's at the beginning. I think it is at the beginning. But there's one. It's not the first one because this is just talking about. This is introducing it. It's B. Fail to capitalize, so B, right? They're saying that's where they say you failed to capitalize. Yeah, 36 should be B, I think. Conditions that foster conditions where foster circumstances or an environment. Circumstances, right? Boom. That was easy. Right? I kid you not, when I just said circumstances, conditions, I hadn't read the answer choices there yet. But when you have an understanding of what they're reading, and sometimes when I said circumstances and environment, the chances that a synonym to those were going to come up is 100%, and then coincidentally it was the exact synonym that I came up with. But that was lucky. It's not going to be like that on every time, but if you come up with your own environment, right, conditions, environment, circumstances, if it's not one of those 3, then just plug in the synonym to those 3 words, and it's going to be pretty obvious for those words in context questions. As used in line 32, deeply. 32, deeply. Deeply troubling, so very, right, excessively troubling, whatever. Profoundly, D for sure, 38. Context, the last 2 paragraphs serve mainly to examine why technology outpace economic growth. Maybe. No, it's not economic growth, it's employment. This picture increases your learning for efficient planning leads to new market possibilities. I don't like any of these. A sounded right until it was economic growth and not labor, but it's not this. It's not company productivity because it's specifically the technology and why that doesn't affect the labor market. And I don't think it's D. I think it is A, weirdly. And that was only because I looked at the other answer choices. A wasn't horrible, but I just didn't think it was the right word. But anyway, I got to keep going. There's claiming about the manufacturing and business service sectors best supported by the figures. Manufacturing and business service. Let's see. Frontier firms, manufacturing. That in both the frontier is stronger. Manufacturing maybe by 2004. The average 2004 is right here. 2004 is right here. That's got to be it, right? Right. I'm just going to go with A because we're running out of time, but I think that's right because I just drew the lines with 2004 and that was right. Best support which of the following conclusion about total factor credit business sector.
right? That it's I just was reading through those answer choices, right? It starts to be like almost an exponential growth curve. I think for 41, can you figure one in approximately which year is the average percent change in total factor greatest for a frontier firm? Average percent change. Figure 1, average percent change looks like it's from like right here, from 2006 to 2007. Right, I was just looking at the steepest slope. All right, I gotta get moving. Fortunately, I get this passage 1, so let me show you guys how to do these ones. I'm gonna read passage 1, do the questions, and then one of the questions in will let you know when you should go back and read passage 2. We're only gonna read passage 1 first, answer those questions, then passage 2, then hopefully we can fly through those comparison questions. But I gotta get going. We're in the ancient Greek game. Does that make sense, guys? What we're gonna do on these passage 2? You have hyperfocus million-year-old. Okay, modern contaminants in DNA, right? Postmortem rules. So DNA, right, is not it's not as perfect. DNA, like if it's in the last 10 years, is almost perfect, right? Match it up. Does this all make sense, guys? Thumbs up if it makes sense. How we're approaching these passages. So mean for downstream and density results. Generation problems in ancient samples. Symptomatic treatment of symbols. Installation. Human material, right? So if you are digging up mummies, right? If somebody touches the bone, then obviously that's different DNA. It's contaminated DNA. High throughput sequencing statistic tools based on raw authenticity of bulk ancient DNA. Wow, they even have tools now to authenticate this. True ancient DNA. Risk of contamination be lowered in the first place. Okay, so contamination is the key here. So in passage 1, the main purpose of the second paragraph. Let's go back here real quick. Second paragraph. Listen to over these rules represent symptomatic treatments. Okay, so it's difficult to remove. This is your message in preceding paragraph, maybe. Straight to the solution presented in the preceding paragraph. Full scope, probably. Nope. Nope. I think it's B, 43. No. Heard, I gotta move, guys. Gotta stay calm, though, right? Stay calm. Now we can move it down. It's somewhat costly. No. Oh, yeah, somewhat costly. It's costly to use, but does not guarantee. Yeah, probably. Clearly dismissive. No. Genuinely hopeful. No. It's A, right? Because it talks about somewhat cautious towards it because it is so expensive. And even after you get that, I remember this specifically. If that's, yeah, it's right here, right? It's at the very end of this passage. In the area of high frequency tools, over authentic bulk next to a time, sample has been contaminated. It's like right here, so 35 through 40, somewhere in there. Yeah, right there. Boom. Through 45, I think. Doing strict 41. I remembered that one at the end, right? We're not reading very much is the key here. We're not reading very much text. So that's how I was able to identify that quickly. Strict laboratory exercises, so very rules-based, narrow, rigorous. I think 46 is... No, I think it's got to be D. Let me just go back. I gotta go faster. Sorry, guys. Oh, let's read it. I think it's rigorous, yeah. I think it's most better. Okay, so it says right here, passage 2. So now we got to go back and read passage 2 quickly. I'm going to fly through this one. Just because I'm not going to try to talk the rest of the way so we can get and we have to go back to 14 hopefully too. The ancient stamp out one problem. Okay, chromosomal shedding. It's ancient, right? ADNA is ancient, looks like. shredding after that. Anyone else around DNA's backbone to get it further. Confetti. But that doesn't do justice to how thorough. It's not like 100 million fold reduction. Scraps, okay. So it's supercomputers have done that. For 700,000 years. 1 million years. So they can analyze stuff 1 million years ago. This is how Jurassic Park and dinosaurs exist, right? In the future, they think they can push this back to DNA for 1 million years. Then it's going to get to 65 million years when dinosaurs. Sorry, guys. I know I got to keep moving, but that's pretty interesting. Finding the right symbol solves only one problem. Microbial. So even buying pristine samples. Pristine seems like an important word. Bait custom methods comprise. Promise to drive the price to roughly $50. Okay, so they're doing this. They're getting better and better at this. It can be once you're the DNA shredded by enzymes is most efficient. Prediction for the research episodes I use in interest. These ones are all positive. I think it's got to be C, although I don't know why. And this is all going to be like right in here. I got to go. I want to shoot. That's it's like shredding. It's like right in here, 55. I think I have to guess on some of these guys. But yeah, I think it's got to be A for that one. I remember reading about that specifically. Pastor says that the scientists think they can push that back. He most likely means essentially that a certain limitation might become more pronounced, particularly boundary might be extended, yes. Kind of like she might speed, maybe sure. No, it's every particular boundary might be extended, right? Coincidentally, that 449, that's exactly what we were talking about with Jurassic Park. Particular boundary, instead of 1 million, it's 65 million, which is when dinosaurs used to exist. Right, about ADNA, both passages imply that even the smallest quantities of ADNA contain phenomena. Is generally problematic. Definitely C, right? They're saying how hard it is to. Well, let me just make sure. No, I think this one has to be C, right? Because it's just how hard it is to categorize these. This is not any bait technique in last period of time. Oh shoot! I gotta keep going with passages. So I both had to get difficulty in line of research, but there's more detail about some addressing these difficulties. Maybe. No, it's not C and it's not A. It's let's be. Given this question, 27 through 31. Shoot, I shouldn't talk this much because now we're not going to get the hospitalization. Okay, so it's about the contaminants. I think we're going to get this one right, but we're going to miss. Or we're not going to have a chance to go back to 14. No, because the RNA bait technique is just like DNA of one species from Canada. No, because RNA bait can only be used on symbols found in tundras. Yes. Applying that technique used on strains. Yes, because RNA is infected means it. Is that true for 51? I don't think it's no. I think it's no, right? Because isn't it talking about? So I'll just finish this one up. I think this one is talking about. Applying that to each certain species. DNA one species. I think it's A. It's definitely not yes, because it's not work because it's talking about how the contaminant DNA, and you can have human contaminants, right? Like if you do it with ancient species, I think it's A for 51. So just for the record, if you guys want to give it to me, we can. Does this all make sense, guys? I just talked too much. I shouldn't have been talking as much as I was, but I was interested in the final two passages, really interested in them, which is why we were able to still go pretty quickly through them. If you guys want to, let's go back to 14, because I wasn't convinced of this answer. According to Leo, the desire to acquire property prompts individuals to. So I remember reading about this somewhere over here. Well, maybe it's over here. Let's go back. Continuing when man engages in using what works to obtain property. Okay, so yeah, we missed this one, guys. It's right here. This can be found right. Is that somebody who's trying to find property? Wait, actually, view work is no. It's not more dignified. Dang it. So if you guys want to give this one to me, this one should be definitely B. I think we're finally going back and having time. The dignified part, it's about acquiring property, and we can find that. I thought I remembered reading it, which is why I didn't eliminate B. Okay. Unfortunately, I think 14, yes, should be, because it is surely undeniable that when a man engages in remunerative labor, the impelling reason and motive of his work is to obtain property. So that's why, right? According to the desire to acquire property prompts individuals to seek work, right? I think for number 14, because they're trying to acquire it, so they need to find work to save up to acquire it. So if you guys want to give that to me, because we were talking so much, then that's great. If anybody knows, well, you know what? You don't even have to give it to me. Does anybody know the scale for this test? Well, first of all, we got to grade it. Okay, does that all make sense? Can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if this made sense? How we approach that? You guys could see at the end of the test, right? We started to get low on time, and I tried to rush through it a bit at the end. Hopefully, 51 and 14, if you don't want to give that to me, were the 2 that I didn't feel comfortable with. 51, I was rushing through. 52, I definitely think that was right. So even though I had to rush, you saw what I did there. So one of the things I want you to notice is that instead of going after both of those, okay, so this is really important, and I didn't get a chance to talk about it, but instead of going after 51 and 52, okay, on today's test, we had about, I think, like 45 seconds left. And I read through 51 and said, nope, that's going to take a long time, because I would have had to go back and reread the lines. So rather than focusing on that, maybe I would have had to do that one if 52 was hard, or maybe I had to guess on both of those. But then I went back and I read 52 before trying 51. There's no reason to do 51 if that's going to be a slower problem than 52. Can everybody give me a thumbs up if that makes sense? So I looked at 52. Coincidentally, that one was way more straightforward. I think we got 52 right. 51 might be wrong, but at least we got 52 right. So again, a lot of this as you get closer and closer to the end of the test is about cutting your losses. I've seen this so often, that everybody everybody wants to rush through the final 10 questions if they're running low on time. Why do that when the chances of missing many of those 10 questions is high, right? Instead of, if you have 10 questions left and you have 8 minutes and you feel like you're a slower reader, right? Find the 5 out of those last 10. Find 5 out of 10 that you know how to do. Take 8 minutes, which is plenty of time to get 5 questions right. Now again, you're at 47 out of 52. You guess on the final, 5 questions. You maybe pick up 1 for sure statistically, and probably 2 if you just guess the same letter. You pick up 2 more questions. You're at 48 or 49 out of 52. Instead of rushing through those 10 and maybe only getting 2 of those right because you really are just randomly guessing when it comes down to it. Okay, does that make sense? Very, 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 very critical that we understand that. Okay, and again, if we did miss a question here or missed a couple questions, then hopefully the scale is in our favor. Right now, we haven't missed a question on this test. SAT May 2021. May 2021. I just go to, if you guys want to find these, typically the answers can be just found on Reddit. But unfortunately, at least from this is the same key. At least from the test that we were using before, this is the same one. We don't have a scale for this one, so if we do happen to miss a question, we might still have a chance at 1600. I think I felt pretty good. There's maybe 2 or 3 questions that I felt like there's a chance we missed, but overall, I felt pretty good about that test. I wish I wasn't talking so much in the last 2 passages, because I think we could have gotten all of them right. So we'll see here. But let's see, number 1, 1 through 4. Yeah, absolutely. We'll go back to 28 as soon as we're done. 1 through 4. So, yielding to 1A. Wait, so A, C, B, D, A. A, C, B, D, A. 6 is B. 7 is D. 8 is C. Good. Oh, we didn't come back to that one either, but I think we got that one right. We lucked out on that one, whereas 14, we didn't get a chance to go back to. We probably got that one wrong. realistically. 9 is B, 10 is D, 11 is B, 12 is C, 13 is A, 14 is B. So this was right, guys. 14 was B. Okay. If you guys want to give it to me, if we get to the end and that's the only one we missed, then I'm going to give it to my, I'm going to say it's a 1600, even if I probably shouldn't. Hopefully you guys give me a little bit of leeway because we were talking so much. But let's see, 16, D, C, B, D, A, D, C, B, D, A, good. Again, I felt pretty good about, I felt really good about the last two passages. If I had any amount of time, I felt like those were guaranteed, should have been guaranteed hundreds, and I just talked my way out of it. 21, D, A, 23 is A, good. 24 is C, 25 is B, 26 is A, 27 is D, C, 29, D, C, D, B, D, C, D, B for 32. Yep. 33 is D. 34 is C. I thought I was looking at 33 again. This is the one that I thought, if I miss one here, I'm going to be really frustrated. Because I shouldn't. 35, A, B, B, D, A, A, C, D, A, A, C. 42 is B. 43 is B. 44 is A. 45, D, D, C, A, B. D, D, C, A, B. 50 is C, 60 is A, and 51 is A, and 52 is B. So guys, I'm going to give it to myself. If anybody knows the scale, 14 was hard. I agree. So anybody that missed number 14, I thought that was hard. And the reason I thought it was hard is because everything about 14 would say it should have been B. This is a classic hard SAT question, just so we're clear on this one. The reason I saw A, knew that wasn't right. I saw D, knew that wasn't right. I read B and didn't think it was wrong, but then when I saw C, I said, yes, that's right. But when I saw this word, then I immediately said it was right. But I didn't really read more dignified, and that doesn't sound what the passage was talking about, like more dignified, right? It was talking about how they gave them the desire to buy property. I mean, that was the whole thing, and that's kind of what this was discussing. I didn't do a good enough job reading the question because it says the desire to acquire property was based on what? It wasn't based on more dignified work. It was based on getting money, right, to move up in society. And so I probably should have gotten that one right if I was really, but again, 14 was a hard question. So if you guys missed 14, I thought that was hard. I probably, it's back and forth. Unless the scale is -1 for reading and we would have missed it, even if we missed that one, we still got a perfect score, then I'm going to give that one to myself just for the purposes of the video. But that was a hard question. So if you missed 14, I'm right there with you. That was a difficult question. And I'm giving it to myself now that we have plenty of time. But of course, on a timed test, it's not. It's not that way, right? We don't have that time necessarily to go back. Let's take a look at 28, okay? As used in line 71, surveyed. Okay, so surveyed, when we take a survey of somebody, we're scattered, right? We're going out and asking people, right? If you think about it, a survey like that. So they are not often surveyed as closely. So surveyed as closely, you're surveying the population, and usually we think about that as like you're voting, right? You're saying what you feel. That doesn't necessarily mean survey. If you survey land, right? So there's land surveyors that just literally go out and they canvass the land, and that's their job, and they're trying to find oil or whatever. And they're surveying. They're just exploring. They're what word? They're tracking, right? Oh, actually exploring. I said explored there. I wonder. So I said explored in my right. I don't know why we went with less explored. Here's why I think. Here's why I would. I used explored in a land surveyor example. I think on this one though, explored generally means something new. So whoever asked about that, yeah, guys, if you missed 14, oh great. So yeah, I'll say 14 was off. I'll give us 51 out of 52 because 14 was hard. And I think it's a reasonable expectation that if you guys all missed that one too, that I missed it, just so you know that was hard. That was definitely the hardest. That was the most 50-50 on any of the questions that I felt was 14. When I had enough time to actually go back and really reread, I understood it and got B, but that's not fair to say on a time test. But because we still missed one and still could get a perfect score, I'm going to say that we missed that one but still got the perfect score. For the ones asking about 28, I said explored here, but when I'm thinking about a land surveyor, it's because they are exploring. They don't know what that is, right? And that's what thinking about a surveyor. But really, they're tracking it. They are tracking the land. They're finding conditions within the land, right? I think explored in this sense is not correct because they've already found these species. Does that make sense? It's a tough one, and potentially if I go back and reread this, I saw C, if you remember, and I picked tracked before really even thinking about explored. But potentially if I went back and actually considered both answer choices, I agree with you. I think that's a lot harder than I initially anticipated. I just saw tracked, and sometimes that's not the right way to go, because if I would have seen explored, if explored, for example, would have been answer choice C, I probably would have gone with explored there. It just happened to be that tracked was first, and they both kind of mean the same thing. I guess the reason that they would say explored is wrong in this case is because they're not exploring in the sense that these are new species, right? If you read this, so they're often not surveyed as closely, but they are surveyed, so they're not exploring for these. They're not looking for these as something new. They've found them. They're just not tracking them as closely, right? And I think are not tracked as closely, are not explored as closely. Again, even if I plug them in there, they sound both kind of right. I think I agree with you. That's a hard question as well. I think 28, had I seen explored first instead of tracked first with just in a list of the answer choices, I definitely would have gone with explored. That was somewhat lucky then in that sense. But I would guess that the reasoning the SAT has behind that question is that explored might mean more like something new that you haven't seen before, although that's not always the case. So tough question. But yeah, guys, in any case, hopefully that was yeah, guys. So yeah, regarding so I'm just reading your comments that I've since missed here. Regarding any future exams, we will likely be covering every SAT that we get our hands on in the future. Obviously, going into the October test, that's great. The August test rather. So yeah, we'll try to cover them. We'll try to cover all the passages. Regarding the need to read more history, I would say that reading history comes from you want to read more formal articles. So like if you read the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal in the U.S., those will help with reading history passages because they're more formal writing. Now that obviously doesn't help if you're not as interested in history, but you can always go back and read. A lot of times the history passage will be excerpts, like it was in this case, was from the Pope, but it'll be excerpts from famous American authors or historians. Thomas Paine, for example, is somebody they use a lot in the SAT. So it's really just about finding those. It's about finding excerpts. I like reading news articles like the New York Times or Wall Street Journal for those history passages because they're shorter. They have a defined length that's very similar to what you find in the SAT passage. The language is more formal, so that also helps. But you're obviously not getting the historical knowledge. It just helps to be focused on something that is, that's history today. That you're writing history today. It's just more modern history, I suppose. So that's what would probably help me. So in any case, guys, the reading test, we were 51 out of 52. We missed number 14, but that was still 400, which is great. Writing and language. So on the other ones, as you guys have seen in other videos, we didn't miss any other questions. So that was 400, and it's not surprising to me at all that despite feeling like the reading passage is typically my best passage, that was the one section that I missed a question because that's the one you can't prepare for nearly as well. You just have to prepare based on endurance and focus. We were 20 of 20 here in math with calc. We were 38 of 38. So a grand total, guys, of 800 and 800 and a 1600 on the May 2021 U.S. test. I hope you guys all found this to be helpful. Spending your next 10 days for the next test is I would take practice tests. We have a lot of playlists. If you guys are interested in seeing all of our playlists for every SAT that's ever been done, I would take a practice test and then I would follow along with these videos. You can also, so in terms of the writing and language, math and science, math sections, right? You can also check out our advanced score reports. We don't have them for the newer tests, but what I would also do is you guys can go to this link for the officially released SAT exams. Oops. Show you guys here officially released SAT and these are the ones that are on the College Board website or Khan Academy. Exam score reports. Okay, I would recommend taking those tests, or if you've already taken those, plug them into those advanced score report links that I just posted, okay, in the chat. And then after you've posted and figured out which question types you're most often missing on the, especially on the writing and language and the math sections, now again, you guys can go back, if you have your Star U, your free Star U student account, you can go back and you can practice those specific question types. So again, when you guys see those, when you open those advanced score reports, and perhaps I'll just open it on my computer here, or maybe on the iPad here in just a second. But that would be my recommendation, is that you potentially download Star U, you plug in your answers from those official exam reports, okay, and then, whoops, shoot, didn't mean to do that, dang it, now I'm out of it. All right, guys, well, I can't log in right now because I'm an idiot, but in any case, maybe we can do it this way. Right, if you plug your answers into those advanced score reports, let's see if this works. Yeah, there we go. Okay, you plug your answers in, you click lessons and practice problems for the writing and language section, you click SAT, and let me pull up the advanced score reports for you guys. Okay, so if I pull up these advanced score reports, they look like this. You guys can, again, plug in all of your answers to those score reports. Just to give you guys some perspective. Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about. So guys, yeah, in terms of not repeating your mistakes, okay, so these advanced score reports, if you click on those and then you submit your answers, these are all of the College Board released exams. You guys can see, like on the writing and language test, this is the best way to do test corrections. Okay, so look, if you plug into this, the April 2019 in-school exam that's available on the internet, okay, if you come in here and you plug in all your answers, you plug in your answers, it tells you if it's correct or incorrect, and then you can also do, then you plug those in and it's right there, right? It tells you. Now, if you want to make it really easy on yourself within the Star U app, so that, right, then you figure out which questions you're missing, you come back here to Star U, you click SAT writing and language, and then you do the lesson chapters that correspond to all of the things in the right column of those advanced score reports that I posted. Okay, all of those techniques correspond directly to the different chapters in Star U. If you want to make it really easy on yourself, for $5 a month, and I know that this isn't, that's not promoting you guys to subscribe to this, but if you guys want to make it really easy, if you click Smart Bubble Sheet here, okay, and then you have your test ready, if you purchase this for $5 a month, it actually gives you suggested practice problems based on your responses. So it's basically the score reports, but then when you come back here and you click lessons and practice problems, the suggested practice, click here button, will actually tell you what you need to focus on. Does that make sense? Let me see if I can pull that up. Give me one sec, guys. I highly recommend that. For anybody watching, in terms of, if you're going to purchase a book of any kind, the book is not going to be nearly as helpful as what I just showed you with the bubble sheet, because it's all of our tutorial material, which is written by current SAT tutors. Okay, it's all in there. It corresponds directly to real practice tests, so we're not writing our own tests that I don't think reflect as well as the real ones. We're corresponding it to all the real ones, and then when you get in, let me see if I can get in here real quick with an account that has that. Yeah, so guys, right, when you get in here, and you plug in all of your answers to the Smart Bubble Sheet, you say, yes, I have my test ready. You can watch the video if you want. You click SAT. Now I plug in my answers for SAT's test number 7, right? I just submit the exact numbers. There's 44 questions. When I come back here to lessons and practice problems, I click here, and now all of the 15 lessons that I missed, or the 15 question types that I missed most frequently, will now show up in my suggested practice. Does that make sense? Can everybody give me 2 thumbs up if you understand that? In terms of what you're going to do, if you're going to purchase anything, right, I highly recommend that these 15, instead of having to do all the work on your own by plugging in the advanced score report, these 15 chapters are all the chapters that we've submitted that were incorrect, that were most often incorrect, and now you know exactly what you need to practice. Every time you update this with a new test, so let's say you take test 6 and test 7 from the College Board website, it will tell you which ones you miss most frequently based on both of those tests. So again, if you're thinking about purchasing a book specifically, I highly recommend not purchasing the book and paying this $5 a month, because if you're going to make the purchase, this $5 a month, I guarantee will be much more accessible and it's corresponding to real practice tests with real question types. Does that make sense? So that's, again, not to promote our products too much, but it's the one thing that I'd say that if it's $5 a month versus purchasing a $40 book, it's very, very obvious to me, in my opinion, that these correspond to the direct questions that the SAT are giving you, and it tells you exactly what you need to work on. If you don't want to purchase it, we've made it available for free for all of you, right? Within those advanced score reports, you can open up the advanced score report, and you just have to do it manually. So the $5 a month really is just, you're free no matter what. If you want to do the score reports, the $5 a month just makes it so that you don't have to figure it all out yourself. You just enter it on the app, your answers from that particular test, and then you have it. So I highly recommend it if you guys are interested. And yeah, I hope everybody that's my best recommendation for preparing in terms of doing test corrections, and it's particularly useful for 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so 2, 3, and 4. Okay. So yeah, it just makes the process very easy, and it tells you exactly what you need to work on going forward. So sections 2, 3, and 4 are most helpful for that. All right, guys. In any case, great job today. Thank you for your participation as always. We'll have a few more live streams next week before the official SAT exam on the 28th. So look out for those. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel if nothing else, and help us spread the word. We want to continue to do this. If you want to support us and join the membership program for $3 a month, we also have that. These are all things that will just help us make more videos. So if you have the means, if you want to sign up for the Smart Bubble Sheet, we highly encourage you to do it, not only because it's very effective and we think it can help, but also because we can make more videos that way. And if you can afford it, we obviously appreciate all of your support. We appreciate your support no matter what. Subscribe to the channel if nothing else, which is, of course, completely free, and make sure that you spread the word. I hope you guys have found these different live streams and real-time videos helpful. And if you have any questions for us going forward, if you just watch the recorded video, this is going to be posted immediately after we're done. We have a playlist for this section that's listed in the video descriptions for all the May 2021 US forms. Click that playlist, follow along. If you have any questions for us while you watch that weren't answered in this live stream, just make sure you post those in the comments section below, and one of our teachers or tutors will definitely respond to those. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Have a great night. Wherever you are in the world, have a great afternoon. Again, wherever you are in terms of the timing. And yeah, guys, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week for some more of these live streams.